and the Bakongos, two different tribes struggling for power in the Congo. Then, of course, Liberia, there's a peace agreement now between forces of Charles Taylor and those of the interim government, Emmett Sawyer, that's still holding at this particular time. Nobody knows what will happen in the future. Then, of course, Malawi, where you have long-time President Hastings Kamuzu Banda, who's been there since independence. Of course, he's almost 90 years old. Just had a brain surgery a few months ago, but still clinging to power. Of course, Banda was educated here in Nashville at Meharry Medical College. Then you have Sierra Leone, of course. Rebels are trying to overthrow the government of President Valentine Strasser, who came to power a few years ago. Then, of course, the good news in South Africa, Mandela has been proclaimed president, by the legislature in Cape Town. Tomorrow he gets sworn in as president of South Africa. And then, of course, the bad news, Rwanda and Burundi. We are fighting, it's still going on.
And looking at all of those difficult spots in Africa, Dr. Madu, let's have you to talk about Rwanda this morning and to give our audience some idea in terms of how we might be able to reach a solution, or perhaps if there is anything the outside world might be able to do in order to help to end some of the violence that's going on in that small country.
Well, you cannot talk about Rwanda without talking about Burundi. The situation in both countries are intertwined. Of course, you have the Hutus and also the Tutsis. In both countries, the Hutus are in majority, about 85 to 15, ratio. The Hutus 85, the Tutsis are 15.
But these are two tribes, two different ethnic.
Two different tribes, but they speak the same language. It was formerly a Belgian colony, that was handed over to Belgium after the First World War when Germany was defeated. So until 1962, when it became independent. But like all colonial masters, the kind of games they played in Africa was divide and rule. The Belgians favored the Tutsis to using the Tutsis as a counterbalance to keep the Hutus in check.
Now, the Tutsis represented the smallest of the two groups?
Precisely, yes, just 15%, in both countries. So what happened was that before independence, in 1962, in 1959, there was a rebellion by the Hutus in Rwanda.
Majority?
Yes, they slaughtered a lot of Tutsis and they took power by force. In Burundi, the Belgians handed over power to the Tutsis and the Tutsis kept power in Burundi. So since then there has been a lot of problems. In Burundi in 1972, over 500,000 Hutus were slaughtered by the president who was in power at that time, who happens to be Tutsi, Mikombero. The Hutus rose up in rebellion and he sent the Tutsi-dominated army to slaughter as many as Hutus as they could get. In fact, the cream of the Hutu intellectual elite was eliminated in 1972, causing over 500,000 Hutus to flee into Tanzania. In Rwanda, the Hutus kept power, until what started in 1990 as a rebellion. What has been happening in both countries is that in 1966, the ruler of Burundi was a man called Mwami Mwambusa. The Mwami is a king, King Mwambusa. He was overthrown by his son, when he was on a foreign trip. His 80-year-old son at that time, called Prince Charles Ndinzeye. He made himself King Ntare and appointed Captain Michel Mikombero as prime minister. Now he left to visit Zaire himself and was overthrown by Captain Mikombero, who made himself president and asked him to come back.